Welcome to Still a Part of Us. We are back again with Lori, and Lori just told us the wonderful birth story of her daughter Cassidy. And that was a real. I'll be honest, I cried a lot actually, and so grateful that Lori was willing to share her heart and share a little bit about her daughter Cassie. So welcome back, Lori. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us a little bit more about what grief has looked like for you and what have you guys done to celebrate Cassidy. So welcome back. Can you tell us a little bit about Cassidy and what happened to her and when she was born? So we just have a little bit of an idea, when all of this happened.
Sure. Cassie was our fourth child. She was born in September of 1997. She died from a cord accident, I guess is what they call it. She had the cord wrapped several times around her neck very tightly. And yeah, I was 38 weeks along with her when she passed.
Yeah.
So.
I mentioned this before, but Lori is really unique, and we usually don't have women that come to us when they've had a loss kind of a long time ago, and
Mm.
because Cassie would be in her 20s, and
Yeah.
so it was interesting to hear about her care, and then also just what they were able to do, even at that time, to kind of remember her and spend time with her. So if you get a chance, please listen to that episode. It was excellent. So Lori, I just as a way of just kind of discussing about what grief has looked like, can you just kind of give us almost a timeline of what your grief has looked like from after Cassie was born all the way till now? I mean, I know there's been a lot of changes. You guys have moved a number of times. Can you tell me how you would describe your grief throughout the last 27, I think, 26,
Hmm.
27 years since she passed
Hmm.
away?
Well, it definitely has changed, but it's remained the same. It's grief
Yeah.
is, man, it's just so hard. One of the things that I say to people, who are going through a loss of whatever kind, I mean, it could be the loss of a pet even, is that when you experience grief, you're the only one going through it personally. Like,
Mhm.
your husband's grieving and your kids are grieving, but it's individual to each person.
Yeah.
And so, and we've all been there, all of us who have lost a child. We're there. We lose our child. We, have a ceremony or a burial or not. So you come home without your baby, but the world is still going.
Oh,
And your world feels like it has just stopped, like time has stopped. But yeah, I mean, it's really like that. It was like that for me, where the time just stopped altogether, and you feel like you're just stuck in this this pit of grief that you may never come out of, and all the while the world still moves. People are still shopping, kids are still going to school,
yeah.
people are going on vacation, and here you are just trying to pull yourself up out of this sadness, and it's easier. People say that all the time. I've heard that, before, like,
Mhm.
my parents have both died. And, you know, uh, I think any loss that you have gets easier, but you might not think it would get easier with your child. Does that make sense? I don't even know if I'm making sense or not, but
Yeah.
um
Well,
but
it feels even more devastating that it's your child. Like you never think
yes,
you're gonna lose a child, somebody you expect to outlive you.
right.
Like your
Yeah.
parents, you expect them to pass away because they're older than you, your grandparents to pass away,
Right.
but you just never really expect your child to outlive you. I mean,
Right. And
you would
there's
never expect your
there's
child to die before you do. Yeah.
right. Right. And there's just something about the bond between a parent and child.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, my son, like I just saw a picture of him the other day. I have like a, one of those picture things where the picture changes all
Mm,
the
mhm,
time.
mhm.
And, it was the picture of him at the birth of his first son, and his wife is holding the newborn, and she, you can just see the emotion on his face, and there's just something about that bond between a parent and child. I mean, I can cry as easily about my adult children as I can about when they were little.
Yep.
It's like, so but it's I don't know. It just has gotten, it does get easier over the years. And it just like becomes a part of you to
Mhm.
where life just kind of goes on and you just live with this fact that, you know, you had a child that's not with you anymore, but they're still part of your family. And so,
It just kind of comes along with you for the ride versus
yeah.
I don't know. It was interesting because my friend, she kind of mentioned something about that, how it's just like, oh, just as kind of hopped on her back. I mean, because she's a lost mom too, and she's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
the grief is just along for the ride now. It just has changed who I am,
Right.
and it's part of
Right.
you, and you're a different person because of it, and that's
Right.
okay.
And it does occasionally come when you least expect it. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just you can never predict, I don't, at least not for me, when you might become emotional about it. You know, it's like you maybe you see something like a flower, and maybe you've seen a flower like that 20 times,
Yeah,
but this one day you happen to see that flower and it reminds you of this, or you know,
yeah,
the loss, or the flower on the door that said you were a grieving family, or so, you know, it's just it's just, yeah, it's always there.
it's
But
always there.
usually in the background. So
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like just a, it's the baseline
yeah,
nowadays. It
yeah,
seems like.
yes, that's right, definitely.
And you guys, one thing that we kind of talked about off camera, off recording beforehand was about where Cassidy was originally buried and where she is now. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. Can you tell us a little bit? Because right now you guys live in Florida, but she
Right,
was born in Michigan. And so
right,
can you talk about how you guys what you did about actually maybe moving her at one point in time? So
sure,
can you talk about that cuz I don't think people realize that that's a possibility. Um
right,
so yeah, can you go into a little
right.
bit more about that?
Yeah, when we first moved from, well, we moved from a small town right on the Michigan Indiana border. We moved to the Grand Rapids area because my husband had gotten a new job. And when we first moved there, we moved to a little town that was in the suburbs because that's where we found a house to rent, you know. And then later we moved further into town, into actual, you know, Grand Rapids proper. Well, Cassie was buried in that little town where we had lived. And her my husband's father and grandparents were both buried in that same little cemetery. So we were
Mhm.
able to, when she initially was buried, we were able to just put her right there with them, you know, and that was great because like it didn't cost us any more money because it wasn't like we had to dig another grave or
Right.
something.
Yeah, or
It,
purchase the land or yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly. And I think that at least it seems to me, I think they try to do that for babies. Like they
Mhm.
try not to, you know, I mean, I could be wrong, to charge parents, you know, for the land. They like a lot of cemeteries have what they call a baby
A
land.
baby land. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so so she was buried there, and then it was really hard to find time with three other children and a traveling husband and myself, where I was having a lot of physical issues. It was just hard to drive the 30 or 40 minutes to get down to where her gravesite was.
Yeah.
You know, I would have loved to have just been able just to go there every day and just sit and talk to her and whatever. But the reality was that's not how it was going to be, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So we talked about moving her to a cemetery that was closer to where we lived in Grand Rapids. And I don't remember exactly what we did to do that. I know that my husband, you know, he took care of all the burial stuff, like from even from the beginning, which I was
Yeah.
grateful for. But I think he just called them and said, we really would like to move her closer. And we had to have someplace to go. So we actually purchased our burial plots in the cemetery where
Oh,
she is.
okay.
So so we have our plots there, and
Mhm.
then she is buried in one of, it sounds terrible, one of the holes, you know,
Yeah,
that
but just one of
our
the spots there, yeah.
yeah, that where one of us would go, then that's where she's, where they moved her to, where they're buried. So it cost us money, obviously, but you know, we would need burial plots someday, you
Yeah.
know, probably. So that's why you know, why we did it that way. And so we just went, I think we went to the cemetery and talked to the people, in their office, and made arrangements to purchase our plots, which, we did that over like a monthly payment thing,
Oh,
over
yeah. Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Because it's a lot cheaper to do it that way, unless you have the funds
Chunk of
up front.
change, yep.
But
Mhm.
yeah. And so once we had gotten our plots purchased from them, then they moved her. They actually drove down to the other cemetery where they, I don't know, what do they call that? Uninter? Isn't
Yes, I think that's is that
I
right?
don't think I don't want to
I
say
don't know
dig
what
her
the
up,
yeah, I
that's
don't know what the correct term or the nice term
yeah,
is.
yeah, right, politically correct term. But they they took her from the old cemetery to the new one, and buried her there. And then we had like at the first cemetery allowed headstones, like markers, to be
Right.
above ground. The
Mhm.
second one required them to be flush on the ground.
Okay,
So
okay.
then we had to kind of go through that of just ordering. It's just it was I think we have a heart shaped stone
Hmm,
that's flush to the ground. And then there's just a little plaque on it that says, "Safe in the arms of Jesus," and then her name and the date.
okay.
And we made sure that it has one of those flower vases. That was
Oh,
very
yeah,
important to us.
yeah.
They probably all do, I guess. But so yeah, so then we moved her there, and then we were able to go and see her anytime we wanted, and it wasn't such a drive. But then, do you want me to go ahead and
Sure, yeah.
explain the whole story? So then, that was the 19. Well, I guess we moved her in about 2000, I want to say, and
Okay, so a few years after she was born then.
yeah,
Okay, like
she
3
was
years.
like
Mhm.
3. Yeah,
Mhm.
she was about 3 when we did that. And little did we know how our lives would change, even down the road, even
Further,
more in the
yeah, uh-huh.
future. And because it happens to everybody, you get a sudden job change, or maybe you have to go move in with an elderly parent for a
Mhm,
while or
mhm,
something. So my husband got a different job, in which we relocated to northern Kentucky, that
mhm.
actually just the Cincinnati area. Well, now what are we going to do?
Yeah,
Because now we're not going to move her again.
yeah.
We wouldn't even considered that. But yeah, so she's still in Michigan, and we have a friend of ours who, when we moved, that was my biggest hesitation about moving. Why I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave my baby
Mhm,
behind.
mhm.
And so our my friend that was there throughout, her death and all that stuff, said, "Well, if you go, I would send her money every year for Cassie's birthday, and she would buy balloons and flowers, and she would go out to the cemetery." And she had 3 sons, and her 2 older boys were, I mean, they were a little bit older, but the youngest one I used to babysit for when he was an infant.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so he would sometimes go out there with her, and they
Oh.
would release the balloons. They would take pictures. By that time, we had digital photography, and so they would send me pictures that they'd gone out, and it was a huge blessing to have someone do
Yeah.
that, and a real commitment from her, because she didn't have to do that. And so yeah, very special.
That is you always are just I'm always so grateful for friends that will just go do a little bit extra and
Oh
just to
yeah,
say, "I'm thinking about you, I'm loving you," and wanting to honor your baby. That's just so
right.
kind. That is
Yeah,
really
yeah.
that's really cool.
She's been a very special friend. Her husband, she lost him to a suicide, and
Oh,
so she is very well aware of grief, and
yeah.
how to move through it and live through it. And she's a very special friend.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man. That is
yeah.
hard. That is hard. Now, I also wanted to because you've had kind of a lot of years to celebrate Cassie, do you guys do anything special for her birthday? Any things that you guys do specially to remember her? Because I know you guys talk about her a lot as a family, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. But are there any things that you do to celebrate her?
Um, yeah, it used to, until we moved. well, till Kentucky, but even if I found that even though we love her and we grieve her and we miss her, like your friend said, it's kind of like along for the ride. The grief is just part of your life, and
Mhm.
so um, most of the time when we first lived there, we would go to the cemetery, do flowers, do balloons, and all that. We call that her heaven day. And so
Mhm.
we would go out for Cassie's heaven day every year. As she got older, we didn't do it so much because we lived so far
Yeah.
away. Like we
Yeah.
lived in Kentucky, she was still in Michigan. But there were times when twice that I know of. One year, one of my sons, well, they actually lived in Michigan for a long time, but not in the same area. But they went to Grand Rapids
Mhm.
and did her Heaven Day
Oh, good.
ceremony there.
Yeah.
And then there was another time where our second son and his wife were traveling, and they just happened to be going past Grand Rapids at the time of her
Oh,
birthday.
that's
And so they
wonderful.
went and bought flowers and balloons and did her little Heaven Day party there as well. So we've done it, and then Matt and I have gone on special. Like I think we went when she turned 18.
Yeah.
We went up there and did a little thing, and then our family is big on golden birthdays,
Mhm.
and we've
Can you
each,
tell us what a golden birthday is for those who
yeah,
may not know what that is?
yeah, because a lot of people don't know when I
Yeah.
say that. They're like, "What's that?" How do you explain it? It's the year that you turn the same amount of years as the day of your birthday.
Yeah.
So Cassie's birthday was when she turned 23 because she was delivered on the 23rd
Yeah.
of the month. So on her golden birthday, I mean, we made it special for all of our children. Our daughter Abby, I made a whole scrapbook of her for her golden birthday, which was her fifth birthday,
Oh.
and we did a tea party, and I mean, we do it up really big. My
Yeah.
my oldest son, we ended up going to. He has been loves dinosaurs. We went to Dinosaur National Monument for
Oh,
his birthday because he just happened to live in that area. And so
that's
he did
awesome.
that. And then Evan's golden was when he was 27. And we just had a night where we had like a theater welcome kind of party, like the red carpet, but
Oh,
all the decorations were gold and stuff. And we had friends over and a nice dinner. Um, so we had to do something special for Cassie. So what we
yeah.
did is that we called our friends who had been there with us when her death happened,
Mhm.
people who were there to support us, and there weren't necessarily a lot because 23 years later
Yeah.
people move and
Yeah.
whatever, but we had a couple of friends from Matt's work that he worked with at that time, and then our good friend our good friend Rachel that took balloons and
Yes.
stuff, and we invited them to come and to the cemetery, and we just did another little Heaven Day ceremony with balloons and flowers. And then we went across the street and we paid for dinner for them at an Italian restaurant.
Oh,
And we sat outside, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, fall day. Yeah, it was a beautiful fall day. And anyway, and we had dinner.
so yeah, it was a
Yeah,
beautiful fall day.
yeah. And we had dinner. We sat outside, and we didn't necessarily like talk about Cassie or like when she died, or we didn't really even do that. We did at the cemetery. We just said, we love you, Cassie, and and all that, and released the balloons. But at dinner we just laughed and reminisced about other things, and just had a really nice time. So that was
Yeah,
a very special time for us. And I
that's
assume that
lovely.
another time, maybe when she hits another milestone, like when she's 30, or, I don't know, we'll probably, maybe do something again. But now we live in Florida, so it's even longer,
Yes,
to
to
get
get
up
up
there.
there.
So,
Yeah, so one of the things I really like about what you guys do is like because your family tradition is to make a big deal about the golden birthday. I think that is really fun and to also do the same for her. Like that's one of the
yeah,
things that I like how people incorporate is just like, "Oh, what are the family traditions that usually do?" Oh, and we do it the same for this baby that's gone and even though
right,
they're not here. I
right.
think
A lot
that's
of
really
people
nice.
actually, this is kind of funny, but a lot of people say, oh, we'll make a birthday cake or, which is great. And I wanted to do that, but I knew if I baked a special cake on a random day that I would just eat it.
You're like, I
So,
can't have that cake in the house.
right. But I will say that because she was born on my oldest son's ninth birthday,
Yes.
then that really has that actually makes a difference too, because
Mhm.
I never wanted him to feel like her birthday overshadowed his birthday,
Yes,
you
yes.
know?
That's a big deal.
And
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, definitely. And even though he was old enough to understand, and he's a very compassionate man now, but, and he would have understood, but I just didn't want it to overshadow his birthday. So I'm just saying that for like over a long stretch of time, many years, her birthday almost takes a back seat,
Yeah.
because we do things to celebrate him as much as we can. Although we don't live too close to one another anyway, so
Right,
I
right.
can do both of them. But yeah,
Yeah. It
so
changes over time, and that's what you have to
it
do.
does.
It really does.
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to go with the flow, and you can't ever feel bad about it changing.
Yes.
You can't be upset with yourself or think that you're dishonoring your child or whatever, because you aren't. I mean, you love them, and you do special things, but if
Mhm.
if situation calls that, well, we can't do that this year, or we can't do that anymore or whatever, then you just accept it, and as
Yeah.
a part of your story,
Yeah.
you know.
I am so glad you said that because I know that I have had people express that they feel guilty that they haven't visited their child at the cemetery. And
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, it's been so long. I just feel terrible about it." And I was like,
Mm.
"But you're in a really busy season in your life where you have little kids or whatever it happens to be." And
Yes,
to not
exactly.
layer on an added guilt of that as well as
Oh,
missing your child. I mean, like that it's not needed, I think. So,
right. Oh no, goodness sakes, as much other stuff as we all,
yeah.
have concerns about in life and day to day and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Because your child, they knew your love.
Yeah.
They knew then, and I'm sure that they know now. And I always, when we go out, I usually kind of in my mind am going, Lord, please let her see these balloons. And I don't know
Yeah.
what happens in heaven, but
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I think that she probably can look down and see that we're honoring her. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Are there any other things that you have done, that you have honored her or celebrated her or just had even remembrances or daily things that are in your life that help you remember her?
yeah, one of the things that I'm looking at my notes. Nobody knows that though. I don't want to put them on the floor. Um, oh, right. Yeah. When they were digging her grave the first time,
Mhm.
they found a rock in just in the dirt, as
Okay.
part of
Yeah.
the dirt.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the right size to engrave her name on it.
Oh,
And so they can I get that and show you?
sure. We'd love to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Okay. Yeah.
All righty. So this is Cassie Stone,
Oh, look at that.
and this rock was exactly like this in the grave when they dug it. And so they, unbeknownst to us, we did not know they did this, and we didn't ask for it. But when they brought the stone for the first cemetery, they said, we found this rock in the dirt, and we just had it engraved for you, kind of so you can like keep it at home or whatever. Isn't that great?
That is so kind. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, and it goes everywhere we do. I put little
Little felt
sticky
pads or
felt
whatever.
things on it so that it doesn't, because it's very heavy, and
Yeah.
it doesn't scratch. But that is usually sitting next to one of her photos. And if I can show you this too, it's her the shadow box that I did.
Oh,
I don't know if you
yes.
can see it.
Yeah.
That's the
Look how
little
cute.
outfit that I had initially picked out for her. She ended up not wearing that one
Mhm.
because they had another little dress. So I kept it in here. Those are her little sister socks that are in there.
Yep.
And I looked at them recently, and oh, they're in very fragile condition. So
Oh, yeah.
being
S
so long,
so
but her
the
hospital bracelet and
Yeah, and a little picture of her. So one of the things, if you're
Yeah.
listening just to on the podcast, you'll there's a picture. The shadow box has a beautiful pink dress and some little white booties and a picture of Cassie and is that a poem or something in there? That
It
was
is. It's I suppose it probably, do you want me to read it? I
sure.
mean
Yeah,
it's
let's hear
very
it.
sweet. And I don't know who wrote it, so I can't give props. I didn't know who wrote it at the time.
Mhm.
Right after we lost her, it wasn't back then, it wasn't like it is today where you can get on the internet and look up infant loss or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was very, very little out there, but I did connect with a resource that had a monthly newsletter.
Mhm.
And so they would send out the newsletter, and often they would include like poetry, and
Yeah.
then they would have you could give to their organization. Like if you gave $5, you get your name or your daughter, in honor
Yes.
of
Mhm.
Cassidy.
Mhm.
So, but this one says it's called Masterpiece. Before you had a name or opened up your eyes or anyone could recognize your face, you were being formed so delicate in size, secluded in God's safe and hidden place. With your tiny little hands and your little tiny feet and little eyes that glimmer like a pearl, he breathed in you a song, and to make it all complete, he brought his masterpiece into the world. You are a masterpiece, a new creation he has formed, and you're as soft and fresh as a snowy winter morn. And I'm so glad that he has given you to me, little lamb of God. You are a masterpiece.
Oh,
That, and actually that might even be a song. I'm
beautiful.
not sure, but yeah. And the little pins up here,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was gonna
know.
say,
Do you,
yeah.
do you
What are those?
remember those little now back in the 90s, it was really popular that women would wear necklaces with these little people, these little children on them, and
Oh,
they have
yes.
birthstones. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
I totally remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
So
those
I
are
had one, of course, and so her little blue birthstone is in there. And then the
there it
little
is.
angel pin was
Yeah.
given to us by the nurse that I mentioned that took her
Oh,
pictures. She gave us that little pin after too. So that's something that anybody can do that. You don't have to be crafty or,
yeah.
you know, um, just whatever helps. But we definitely, I have, pictures of her. We have like a little tiny little precious moments figurine, a
Figurine,
little
uh-huh.
baby one. It's a little baby angel. It's so cute. And I have, it's not like a shrine, but I just have a little display of Cassie's with a little bear and pictures. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's always been in our house, like ever since, every house we've ever lived in, which has been quite a few. It's always been there. So yeah, so those, that's easy. The other thing was that I planted a flower garden
Oh, okay.
for her, and we've always called it Cassie's garden. And every new house we moved to, I had to make a new garden. But
Which you need to do,
I
I mean, makes sense.
that's right. I will say, however, that the state of Michigan has the best soil for growing flowers
Oh,
ever.
okay, okay, good to
So
know.
yeah, it's very sandy and drains really
Drains
well.
well.
But our photos, I mean, our flowers that we had there were more beautiful than anywhere else we've
Oh,
lived. So,
and there are
but
there specific types of flowers that you usually
yeah,
plant?
yeah. Well, I wanted to plant something that was meaningful about her birth and her death.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the first plants that I planted were baby's breath, which
Mm.
the meaning of that is everlasting love, and then carnation is means mother's love. I planted salvia, which means I think
Oh,
of you, and yarrow, which actually the yarrow and the coreopsis were given to me by a friend whose mom had a big garden and she was taking cuttings.
yeah.
And I thought, oh, that'd be nice. And then I found that the yarrow means healing and everlasting love, and the coreopsis means always cheerful. And I don't know, somehow I think of Cassie even to this day as being a cheerful person. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but but my very favorite flower is lilies of the valley,
Yeah.
and I I grew those from another friend who gave me some, and they grow in the shade, and
Mhm.
they're like very almost secretive because you have to
Yeah.
kind of push back the leaves to find
Yeah.
them. But the meaning of those are sweetness and the tears of Mary.
Oh,
And that was just so special to me. I just love the
yeah.
meaning of
I
sweetness of
didn't know
my
that.
baby, but yet Mary had tears when she lost her son too,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh,
oh yeah,
that
those are,
that is so cool that you do that and that there's, like, meaning to all the
yeah,
flowers, and they just beautiful. Well, Lori, thank you so much for sharing. What I feel like all of the things that you do to celebrate her life and also to talk about her and everything is very joyful and very cheerful, actually. So
it is
it's been
very
fun
much.
to chat with you about her and what's helped and what it's looked like over the many years. And I'm so grateful because it gives me hope that I'm gonna, make it to the other side and it's gonna be okay.
Absolutely. You
It,
will,
yeah,
definitely. We all will. All moms will, because
yeah,
it's just, I think, part of how it goes,
yeah.
it's just life.
It's just life. Yeah. So thank you again, Lori. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks. I enjoyed it, and it's really been very special for me.
Good. Good, good. Okay. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.